Today we're diving into a major development coming out of the Black Sea region, a moment that's sending shockwaves through Moscow and shifting the tone of this war once again. Ukraine has struck a critical Russian oil depot and port facility in the Black Sea, and the impact of this blow is far deeper than a single explosion. This attack is part of a bigger strategy, a long-term effort to dismantle Russia's ability to move fuel, supply its fleet, and keep operations running across occupied territories. And the way this strike happened, the timing, the precision, and the symbolism has everyone talking. The world has watched the Black Sea become one of the most contested spaces in modern conflict. Every few weeks we hear about drones hitting ships, missiles targeting military infrastructure, and Ukraine pushing further into Russian-held waters. But this strike stands out. This time, Ukraine went after the very energy lifeline feeding Russia's war machine. And hitting that lifeline hurts. Not only does it slow Russia's logistics, it rattles the image of control that Moscow tries so hard to maintain. The oil depot that was destroyed wasn't just a random site. It was a central node in Russia's fuel storage and distribution network. A place feeding naval operations, supply convoys, and even civilian transit routes across Crimea and the mainland. The port connected that fuel to ships supporting Russia's Black Sea fleet. Losing it means losing speed, flexibility, and efficiency. It means delays, shortages, and vulnerabilities. And in a war where every hour of delay can shift momentum, this kind of disruption hits hard. What's remarkable here is the evolution of Ukrainian operations. Early in the war, Ukraine was mostly focused on defending territory and launching local counteroffensives. But now, Ukraine is striking deeper, farther, and with more accuracy. We're seeing long-range drones traveling hundreds of kilometers. We're seeing maritime drones slip through Russian defensive lines. We're seeing intelligence-driven attacks on targets that genuinely matter, not just symbolic ones. And this port strike is a textbook example of how Ukraine is adapting while Russia is still reacting. Russia's response, of course, has been predictable. Statements dismissing the attack, claims that damage was minimal, promises that everything is under control. But satellite images, local reports, and independent analysts paint a different picture. Huge flames, massive fuel losses, reduced operations, emergency crews working non-stop. When footage of the burning depot circulated online, it wasn't just another explosion video. It was a reminder that Russia's Black Sea posture is far weaker than it appears on paper. This attack also ties into Ukraine's broader maritime strategy. Over the last year, Ukraine has destroyed or disabled several Russian warships, pushed the fleet eastward, and forced Russia to move critical assets farther from Crimea. By targeting ports and depots, Ukraine isn't just hitting hardware, it's reshaping the entire operational environment. If Russia can't fuel its ships easily, it can't patrol the same way. If it can't load supplies quickly, it can't reinforce positions in occupied areas at the same pace. And if it can't protect the infrastructure that keeps its fleet alive, it loses one of the main advantages it held at the start of the war. There's also an economic angle. Oil depots aren't just military assets, they're financial assets. They support trade routes, support regional energy supplies, and contribute to Russia's revenue streams. Damaging that infrastructure sends a signal to markets, investors, and partners. It shows that even deep inside Russia-controlled territory, nothing is untouchable. That fear, that uncertainty, is a quiet weapon that Ukraine has been using more effectively as time goes on. Another important detail is how Ukraine conducts these operations. These aren't massive missile salvos costing millions of dollars. These are locally developed drones, modified systems, or creatively repurposed technologies. Ukraine is proving that innovation can beat traditional heavy weaponry when used smartly. A few years ago, the idea that a country without a navy could force back one of the world's supposedly strongest fleets would have sounded ridiculous. Yet, here we are. Ukraine has made the Black Sea unsafe for Russia through brains more than brute force. This strike also puts pressure on Russia's defensive systems. After hundreds of attacks, Russia has layered the Black Sea with radars, anti-air systems, naval patrols, electronic jamming equipment, and early warning stations. But even with all that, Ukraine was able to get through. And every time it gets through, Russia has to stretch its defenses even thinner. It has to move resources, relocate systems, and spread out troops. That spreading weakens frontline operations and gives Ukraine more openings. The psychological effect shouldn't be underestimated either. For Russian soldiers stationed near these sites, seeing a supposedly secure facility go up in flames is demoralizing. For commanders, it adds uncertainty. For civilians in the region, it reinforces the belief that the war isn't distant. It's right at their doorstep. Ukraine knows this. And these strikes are designed not only for physical damage, but for emotional and psychological impact too. On the Ukrainian side, the strike has boosted morale. It reinforces the idea that even with limited resources compared to Russia, Ukraine can land meaningful blows. It reassures allies that support is generating real results. And it sends a message to the world that Ukraine isn't backing down, even in a difficult phase of the war. We also have to talk about timing. Every major Ukrainian strike is timed carefully. Ukraine chooses moments when Russia is distracted, repositioning, or overconfident. This wasn't a random night attack. It likely came after weeks of intelligence gathering, drone surveillance, and analysis of activity around the depot. When fuel levels were high, when ships were present, when personnel were reduced, or when defenses had gaps, that's when Ukraine moved. And let's not ignore the geopolitical layer. Every time infrastructure inside Russian-controlled territory is struck, it raises international questions. How secure is Russia really? How stable is its military position? How effective are its defenses? These questions matter because they affect diplomacy, negotiations, and international support. And for Ukraine, proving that Russia's control is fragile increases pressure on Moscow at every level. The attack also complicates Russia's supply lines to Crimea. For over a year, Ukraine has been trying to isolate Crimea by hitting bridges, railways, depots, and ports. This strike tightens that isolation even more. It limits fuel movement, slows supply trains, and forces Russia to reroute through longer, riskier corridors. Each reroute adds hours, fuel consumption, vulnerability, and cost. Over time, that adds up. For Ukraine, the road ahead is still difficult, but strikes like this show that the country is not helpless. It's adapting faster than many expected. It's building new weapons locally. It's coordinating intelligence with partners. And it's figuring out how to hit the exact places that matter most. Destroying an oil depot may not end the war, but it shifts pressure, changes calculations, and weakens Russia's ability to sustain itself. The bigger picture here is that the Black Sea is no longer Russia's safe zone. It's contested. It's unpredictable. And Ukraine has turned it into a battlefield where low-cost, high-reward tactics are doing real damage. Russia now has to allocate more money, more troops, and more systems to defend what it once took for granted. And that redistribution affects everything from frontline supply routes to long-term strategic planning. If Ukraine continues this pattern, Russia's logistical backbone could weaken significantly. War isn't just fought with tanks and artillery. It's fought with fuel, storage, transport, repair facilities, and supply networks. Hit enough of those, and the front lines begin to crumble naturally. Ukraine understands this deeply, and this port strike shows a focus on hitting the foundations rather than the surface. In the end, this attack is a message from Ukraine that long-range strikes are not slowing down, a message that Russian infrastructure is vulnerable, a message that even Russia's core energy systems can be disrupted, and a message that the war is entering a phase where precision and strategy matter more than ever. And as always, these moments remind us that behind every headline, every explosion, and every strategic shift, there are people living through this reality every day. Families watching flames from their windows. Soldiers adapting to new challenges. Engineers working overnight under pressure. Leaders making decisions that will shape the future of their countries. This conflict continues to evolve, and every strike like this one reshapes the path forward in ways that will echo long after the smoke fades. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for staying informed in a time when understanding the truth matters more than ever. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one with another deep look into the moments shaping our world.